Hey, good morning, everybody. Nikki Burnett here. Today's Taste Life Nutrition Radio and podcast streaming live on KUHSdenver.com. Today we have, again, Dr. Mana Senbi, who is founder of Aruna Health, Aruna Functional Medicine and Naturopathic Medicine. I made that much longer than probably it should have been. I'm in your, sorry, gotta get my head in the right place. Anyway, so glad to have you back after your amazing TED Talk that you just had. So I want to talk about that, but thanks for being here.
Absolutely. I'm so glad that we are talking again today.
Yes, me too. This is going to be a really good one. I'm excited to really dive in because this is a topic, for one, that we know that most people know so little about, but we're going to go really deep into brain health and brain function, and I think it's a really important topic. But as always, first we start the show with gratitude, because gratitude can change the world. I truly believe that. I think it's so important. I try to wake up in the morning and that's my first thought. Well, that's not necessarily true. I try to make it my first thought. My first thought tends to go to work and all these other things, but I think being in gratitude is a game changer on so many levels. So, Dr. Mana, what are you grateful for today?
Yes, excellent question. I'm really grateful that a TEDx talk went as well as it did yesterday.
Yeah.
It was really wonderful. I was able to step on the stage with ease and comfort and really deliver my message, and I feel very thankful today.
Awesome. Awesome. I love that. I think that, and I want to talk more about it.
Music.
Oh, the music. See? Always something. There we go. Thank you. I think I was grateful for this last week too, but but I'm going to be grateful until the time happens that we're going to Mexico. We're going to take a very short little vacation to just around sort of the Puerto Vallarta area, which we've never been to before. And it is one of those all-inclusives, which is not something that we have ever done, right? We always are we go and we roam and we're sort of by the seat of our pants and we sort of dig into the communities that we're in and that kind of thing. And this is a first to where we're just going and we're just going to see what happens and enjoy sort of the all-inclusive relaxation spa kind of experience. So I'm really excited about that.
Wonderful. That sounds great.
I know. I'm ready. So we have a couple of weeks, but it's coming. I'm ready for a good little break. So let's do this. I want to, before we jump into your TED Talk, I want to, Dr. Mana has been on with us before, but for those who haven't met her, haven't seen her before, I would like you to give a little bit of a little bit of your story, your background, the typical stuff, what excites you, what motivates you, what brought you to this place to specialize in menopause, perimenopause, and these changes that women go through. And it's so important. We were just talking about how we don't talk about it enough, and we need to talk about it because it can be super confusing. So, yeah, let's start there.
Okay, sure. So my first career was in finance, and I worked on Wall Street for a number of years. When my children were born, they were diagnosed with special needs, and I used to be a believer in conventional medicine, doing everything by the book. Get every vaccine, get every booster shot. And then when my children were diagnosed, my pediatrician said that there was nothing she could do. She had no answers for me, and that really set me off on a journey and taught me that we really need to own our own health and well-being and take care of our families to the best we can. The experts that we think have the answers often don't have the answers. It may feel like to us that they have the answers. So that kind of started my journey towards into medicine. So I actually went back to medical school, to naturopathic medical school, and I trained in functional medicine. And over the time, I of course, I learned about neurodevelopmental disorders, like my children were diagnosed with autism. I learned about that, but then I became very interested in the brain-related health issues for older adults, for midlife adults, and then I trained with Dr. Bredesen on how to prevent dementia. And during this time, I was going through my own perimenopause journey and my journey with breast cancer. And I saw again firsthand how ill informed doctors still are. Many doctors still are today. And I really took it upon myself to do deep dives into hormones for women. Even if they have breast cancer, what is the nuance there? And then the impact on women's brains, right? Like women are diagnosed with dementia at twice the rates of men, but they don't know this, and people are not really telling us this and not telling us how we can prevent that. So I just became very passionate about these things that especially impact women, and we don't talk about them, right? And we don't
Yep.
talk about them, and it's like, why don't we talk about these things? You know, women have so much purchasing power, they have deciding power. They don't have they you know, this is not front and center. The health is not front and center. What's happening inside the body, prevention is not front and center, and that's my passion, is to bring prevention to everybody's attention, that that's where the money is. If you wait for a diagnosis, it's not, that's, you're leaving it to chance, you're leaving it too late, so don't do that. That's my
Right.
passion, that's how
Right.
I'm here.
Agreed. Agreed. So I'm curious about something which is a little bit off topic, but because you experienced it and because this is a hormone topic, I want, what is your opinion, your very educated opinion on estrogen and breast cancer?
It's a great question to start with, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, when the Women's Health Initiative study was published in 2002, they published that hormones are harmful to women and can cause breast cancer, right? And since then, we have been on this news cycle that hormones are harmful, they cause breast cancer and all that. What most people don't know is that in the 20 plus years since that study was actually published, the WHI has walked back almost all of their findings, right? Almost all of the findings. So now what we know is that for every woman, the decision to use hormone replacement therapy is a very individualized decision, right? We have to take into your account your family history, your personal breast cancer history if you have any, and whether you have hormone positive cancer or hormone negative cancer, right? If you are hormone negative, then it's less of a concern and you are okay to do hormone replacement therapy for the most part. But again, each decision should be made individually. If you have a hormone positive cancer, then it's a more nuanced decision, right? Because there's a way to test how strongly positive are your estrogen receptors or progesterone receptors. So all of those things have to go into the decision, but it's not a blanket no for anyone. That's what I would say. I would just flip
Yeah.
it on its head and I kind of say, instead of saying don't do it, just say find out about it. Work with your doctor to get a nuanced information. Perhaps a low dose hormone therapy is right for you. Perhaps vaginal hormone therapy is right for you. Perhaps progesterone is right for you. Perhaps testosterone is a better option for you. Perhaps DHEA. So there's so many things that go into this. So I would say that it's not at all a don't do it.
Right.
It's definitely a please consider it in a very nuanced, individualized fashion.
And I think it's so important too because there have been a number of times where I've come across patients and clients who have had breast cancer, right, and have gone through the treatment, but now they're moving through perimenopause and menopause, and they're experiencing the symptoms of it, as well as what we want to dig more into, the cognitive dysfunction, the brain dysfunction, and they're like, but I can't take my hormones, and hormones, especially natural hormones, right, our bioidentical hormones, are protective of brain function and brain health. And so when they're told, I had this cancer, I'm in remission, but now I can't take hormones, and they're struggling, and things are just going to get worse and worse and worse, especially if they're struggling with the cognitive dysfunction and the things that seem so simple, but the memory lapses and can't think of words and all of these things on into some women get to the point where they just can't work anymore because the brain dysfunction, and we can do something about that. We can help this. And so let's talk about that a little bit, because women need to know that there are answers outside of absolutely you just can't take hormone replacement therapy.
This is a passion project of mine. Women with breast cancer and how to think about hormones, because I have come to know so many amazing women in the last several months who have had a history of breast cancer, who are taking some chemo drugs for a number of years and not on hormones, and how difficult it is for them. Just the quality of life is so impacted. Again, my answer is the same. Find a breast cancer literate, hormone literate oncologist. Find a breast cancer literate hormone replacement therapist. There are these people that specialize in these populations, and it's really important. I really encourage women to find the right person for them. We do exist, we are out there. In fact, on my YouTube channel that I'm starting shortly, one of the interviews that I'm having, one of the first ones, is with Dr. Julie Taguchi, who is an oncologist and is very literate on hormone replacement for women. So, how to think about hormones when you've had a personal history of hormone positive breast cancer. That'll be a really helpful discussion, and I'm so looking forward to that discussion. But I would just say it is not a no. It is not a no. It is to be considered in close, discussions with your doctor. So every woman deserves to have the quality of life that's going to make her feel fulfilled, happy, balanced, memory intact, just feeling full of vigor. It's unacceptable that so many women have to live with the absence of that.
Yeah, I so agree. And what so many women, I think, are starting to learn and understand is we are moving through perimenopause, early 40s, and so we have years and years and years and years left of life and of work and of family and of developing wisdom, and to imagine or to think of 40, 50 years plus of just consistent struggling. I mean, this is an entire life of being where we should be productive and should be, still working and developing and growing and all of these things, and it can just stop us in our tracks.
Yes, and it not only does it stop us, things progressively get worse. Right? If we just stopped at a certain point and we knew the decline wasn't going to be worsening, that's one thing. But it gets worse, right? So that's what is unacceptable and takes women out of careers, of lives, out of relationships. We say no to that.
Yeah.
Collectively as women, I say we say no to this.
Agreed. Yeah, totally agree. So let's talk a little bit about your TED Talk, because I want to move into the brain health and the brain function, but I think that it's what your TED Talk was perimenopause, right?
Yes.
So let's talk about that, and then we'll kind of move into the brain function and brain health.
Sure. So as I mentioned, the topic was basically it's time to break the silence. Right? Women are more than half the population. Every woman experiences perimenopause and menopause, and yet so many women don't have the information to know what to expect, how to prepare, and how to get the help they need. That was basically the crux of my talk. It's like we need to break the silence, right? We need to normalize the conversation beyond our conversations, right? Beyond the people on podcasts and interviewers and interviewees who are talking about this, and beyond our audiences. How do we get it out to the general audience, right? So we need to normalize the conversation, right? We need to educate women, but we also need to educate men.
Yes.
And education needs to be in schools, communities, and workplaces. And we need to support women in the workplace, right? 25% of women consider quitting their work because of symptoms that are entirely manageable with the right support.
Right.
And 10% of women quit at the height of their careers because of these symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
Because somehow they didn't have the information, or even if they have the information, it wasn't individualized to them, or somehow it didn't work for them. So the medical system doing them is not doing them a favor. The whole infrastructure, the society, has conditioned women to stay silent about this thing.
Yep.
Right? And if there is shame around it, if this is a taboo topic, how are women going to talk about it?
Right.
Right? We are conditioned to stay silent, so we can't go seek the answers that we need. And all of that is just like, no, 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 let's not do that.
Yeah.
So that was really my whole thing. And then it dovetails into the whole brain health thing, right? Like one of the things I talked about was the symptoms of perimenopause, right? The PET scans, brain scans show women can have an up to 30% decline in brain energy during perimenopause. And what's happening is that the brain is actively remodeling during perimenopause. Regional connectivity is changing, regional chemistry in the brain is changing, and all of these changes are correlated with changes in mood, sleep, and cognition. Right? So if we don't know what to expect, how to prepare, and how to give our body the tools, the resources it needs to continue functioning optimally.
Yep.
So it's in our hands.
It's
entirely in our hands.
It is.
To help ourselves.
Yeah.
So I think it's women that are going to help women. Yeah, so we have to get the word out there.
I fully agree. You know, there's so much fear, you know, kind of going back to the start of the conversation, there's so much fear around hormone replacement therapy. You know, is it good? Is it bad? Should I do it? Should I not do it? And I think the big thing is to understand that there is a difference between our pharmaceutical hormone replacement therapy versus bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, and the anti-aging benefits both in brain function and in skin and in sexual function and all of these things, and how important it can be to support the body with the foods and eliminating toxins and all of these things that, you know, we do in the functional medicine world. But like you said, will replacing those hormones also be beneficial? And I think for a lot of people it really, really is, and it can change. You said, you know, the brain is constantly modeling. Well, it can be a negative, right, or it can be a positive, and if we bring in those supportive hormones, then we're supporting our brain function.
Yes, absolutely. I do want to go back to one thing.
Yeah.
The pharmaceutical hormones. So the patch, the estradiol patch, is actually bioidentical. Right? So the patch that you get at CVS or Walgreens or Costco or anywhere, those patches are bioidentical. The oral micronized progesterone that you get is bioidentical, and these you can get at your conventional pharmacies, right? So in most cases, when I'm writing a prescription, I'm writing for these because people can use their insurance to get them. There are compounding pharmacies that create creams in different kinds of concentrations. Those are, of course, also bioidentical, but they are not available at your regular conventional pharmacies. So the distinction that we have to make in hormones is synthetic versus bioidentical, right?
Yep.
So synthetic hormones are generally, if you take oral estrogen, that is mostly synthetic, right? So that's the distinction we want to make, is synthetic versus bioidentical. So the patch that you will get in any place, and the progesterone, as long as it's not medroxy progesterone, that is not bioidentical, but oral micronized progesterone is bioidentical. So that's one thing. You know, we still need a lot more research on what is the ideal value, how much hormone should somebody take, right? This whole thing, the fear about hormones, I know it's a real fear. And when do you have fear is when you don't know about something.
Yeah.
Right? When you don't know about something, you feel afraid. But if you start looking into something, listening to some conversations, reading some books, reading some papers about it, the more familiar you become with it, the less you're afraid, right? I think there have been horror stories with incorrect usage
Yep.
of synthetic hormones
Exactly.
that make women afraid, and rightly so. So, what needs to be understood is that what we are talking about is bioidentical hormones at much lower doses than would cause your body to go haywire, right? And then that has to be tempered with, there was this other line that doctors used to say, the lowest dose of the hormone for the least amount of time. Incorrect. That's also feeding into the fear, like, oh my gosh, it's dangerous, so use the lowest and for the least amount of time. Now we are getting more and more research on what is the level of hormones that will help you with hot flashes and night sweats. Okay. In my experience, even a small dose of hormones can help you with just those symptoms. And then for bone benefits, right? Because fast bone loss begins during perimenopause.
Yeah.
When you go 3 months without a period, you have already begun a period of fast bone loss, which will eventually lead to osteoporosis, right? So for osteoporosis, it's our understanding that you need a higher dose of hormones, right? If you're doing all these other things to build your bones, like vitamin D and calcium and all this stuff, it's not going to help at all unless you have your estrogen and progesterone on board. And for brain benefits, you need a still higher level of hormones, right? So when a woman is cycling normally, her levels of hormones fluctuate so much. For, I would say, like the average person, at the peak during her cycle, it could be like 3 to 400, even 500 picograms per ml in blood. And at other times, it could be very low, like 50 or 100, right? Because the estrogen does two peaks during each cycle. At the low points, it could be 50 or 100 or something. And during pregnancy, it's in the thousands, right? And when you go through perimenopause and menopause, estrogen goes down almost to zero, right? So now we're learning more about what is the level that we need to have in our body to prevent hot flashes and night sweats. What is the level we need for bone benefits? What is the level we need for brain benefits? So it's all a very exciting time, actually, if you are willing to suspend the fear and look into the information that is coming out. Don't listen to the fear mongering. Listen to people, go to resources that are giving you information that is more enabling, more affirming, instead of trying to make you scared.
Yeah, yeah, totally agree. I love this. And I love, those are things that I didn't know when it comes to the different levels of hormones and the benefits that they have. So important and so amazing. You had mentioned earlier Dr. Bredesen. And so Dr. Dale Bredesen, if you don't know him, he's reversing Alzheimer's disease, right? His books are fascinating. He's fascinating. He has a whole course, Recode course, which you have taken. I've considered it. I've not done it, but I've considered it. But there's so many factors that go into, falling, moving through this place of dementia on into Alzheimer's, and so many things that we can do. And then he lists them, right? He's got his list of things that you can just follow, whether they're lab markers, whether they're nutrients, whether they're, it's caffeine, right? These different things that he says, check these boxes, and it's going to help you either to, mitigate or reverse the symptoms of dementia and Alzheimer's. It's amazing stuff. So let's talk about, I guess, how you bring in that certification into what you're doing as far as, working with women in menopause and perimenopause. But you're also working with men and their brain health as well, yes?
I am. I am.
Yeah.
I really am. Women are diagnosed with dementia twice the rates of men, but of course, so out of every 3 people, 2 are women and 1 is a man. So I work with men and women in my practice. Just like we used to think that osteoporosis is a disease of old age, and now we know that it's not. It begins at midlife. Dementia is not a disease of old age, it's a disease of midlife.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It begins at midlife, and if you don't take care of your brain, then in about 20 to 30 years, there will likely be a diagnosis of dementia. Likely to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
The odds are like that. So it's really important to understand that midlife is the time when you bring prevention front and center because you want to prevent all these diseases. And with women, I'm always trying to like bear on this point that you need to start working on your brain health during midlife, right? So because 20 years from now, when you are mid 60s, right, when you hit 70, often a lot of diagnoses come around that time.
Yeah.
The brain keeps remodeling, and you notice things are changing. You notice an impact on your memory. You notice that you are less able to do things. But many times people are waiting for a diagnosis or a hard stop before they start to take action. I am a strong proponent of not doing that and looking out for the risk factors, like what are the different things that impact the brain, figuring out today how you are doing on those, and then putting into place a plan to begin to reverse those damages, whether it's what kind of toxins you're carrying, whether it's what is your heart health, what is your cardiovascular health. Do you have high blood pressure? Do you have high cholesterol? Do you have high markers of inflammation? What is your digestive health like, right? What is your sleep like? Are you getting enough sleep and enough good quality sleep? Do you have sleep apnea, right? Do you have a history of depression? Is your level of chronic stress high, right? How is your nutrition? Do you have enough vitamin D, omega 3s? Do you have enough iron? You're not anemic. Do you have optimal levels of hormones? All kinds of hormones. Is your thyroid hormone optimal? Is your cortisol in the right range? Right? Is your insulin optimal? And then, of course, your estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. And what kind of food you're eating, right? So all these things go into creating this elaborate equation of all the different risk factors, and then we create a roadmap for you. This is what it looks like. These are the things it would be helpful to work on so that you change your long-term course. You're not going towards dementia, you're going towards a healthy brain towards the very end, until the very end of your life, right? What is the point of us living a full life in our 50s and perhaps even in our 60s, but by 70s we're like not able to take care of ourselves,
Right.
not able to do activities of daily living, losing our memory, losing who we are, you know.
I do, and I think that what I've seen so often is the the lack of knowledge of the amount of control we have, right? There's this thought process that if it's in my family, it's going to be me, so there's nothing I can do about it, or it's just bad luck. And there are even if you're already going down the road of cognitive dysfunction, we have the ability to turn that back, right? So you've got to find the bright people like you who know how to do this. But if it's in your family, know that it doesn't have to be you. So important to know that we have an amazing amount of control. We just have to. We've got to have the information, and the knowledge is key in everything.
Yes, I think defeatism is un-American.
Yes, I love that.
We are the nation of can do and will do.
Yes.
How can we give up on ourselves?
Yeah.
That's the very last thing we want to give up on. So everyone should know that there is a lot you can do. So much of your health is in your hands, despite the genetics. Despite the genetics, a lot of the control of your health is in your hands through epigenetics.
Yes.
Epigenetics is how you control your mental, emotional, and physical health through the food you eat, through the environment you live in, through how you're doing in your mind, how you take care of your mental and emotional health, all of that, I would say 90% of your health is in your hands.
Yeah.
10% isn't,
Right.
because if some of the genes are fixed, okay, but there is still a lot and 90% is a heck of a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the most, I was talking to, and I do say this a lot, but I was talking to a friend yesterday, and in my mind, the way that I see epigenetics is God's gift of free will, right? I mean, it's the most amazing thing because our genetics are our genetics, but due to epigenetics, which are, for those who may not know, locations on top of genes that have the ability to turn genes on and off. So it's gene expression, it's controlling gene expression. And so if we have Alzheimer's in our family, or cardiovascular disease, or diabetes, or autoimmune conditions, right, all of these things, just because it's in the family, which I have all of those in my family, doesn't mean that that has to be me, right? It means that I have the control over what I put in my mouth, what I put on my skin, how I think, right? The how I deal with stress. And some of these things can be difficult, and some of these things can be a practice, right? A practice in managing stress, a practice in being aware of the food that you're putting in your mouth, the practice of looking at the ingredients of the things that are in your shampoo and in your cleaning products, and what you're putting in your garden. I mean, the list goes on, and so the goal is not to overwhelm, but the goal is to help everyone understand that you're accountable, which is awesome, and it's up to you. And I think it's so beautiful that we have this much control, and we don't have to say, okay, my dad had a heart attack, so that's going to be my end. It doesn't have to be that at all.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be like that at all. And I like how you explain epigenetics. It's true that we can turn our genes on and off through epigenetics. And the thing to understand is the thing that is needed to make it not overwhelming is to understand what it means for you, what it will give you.
Yeah.
There is, sometimes when you are doing so many things in your life, you're busy with work, with children, with your career, you're taking care of family and all that stuff. Adding on all these things that you have to do feels overwhelming, right? It feels overwhelming. But what I have found in my life is that when the time is right, when you understand why something is important, a shift in mindset happens. And that gives you the energy that you need to begin to do the heavy lift of prevention. Because it is a heavy lift when you have to learn about new things. Right? But just know that this is expected. We expect a heavy lift. It is a bit of getting over the hump of learning about prevention and learning what you need to do, and then starting to do those things. But if you do them for a month, 2 months, 3 months, they become second nature. And then you see the results of those changes in real time. And then it becomes self-fulfilling, self-propelling, because you're seeing, if I eat this way, I feel so much better. Or perhaps if I journal at night before I go to bed, and I do yoga nidra before I go to bed, I sleep so much better. It's like these things, these small shifts in how you go about your day can make a big difference. And so yes, everybody has already a lot on their plate, and we are asking you to do more. But know that there are real benefits to that incremental increased effort that you will put into your own life.
Yeah, totally agree with you. It's really. I think I often am talking with patients and clients who are sort of at that starting point, right? They've already gone down the road of dysfunction, whatever that dysfunction looks like, and so I think it's our job, right, to educate, to help them understand, and then to say, okay, it really is the baby steps, right? It's the baby steps that are going to get you to taking the bigger steps and the bigger steps. Ideally, though, which is why I think we both do these shows and try to talk about these things, is to start to create that knowledge and that conversation prior to the point where you're already starting to struggle, right? We don't want to get to that point, as as kids, it's like we're invincible and nothing's ever going to happen, and so we don't even think about these things. But there has to come a time where we start to think, okay, what is it that is in my food? And which is a huge topic right now, right? I mean, thank God it's a huge topic right now, because the food that we are eating is killing us and is damaging our brains, right? And it's impacting our epigenome for generations to come. Um, but now that we are starting to have, I mean, the awareness has been there for so long. These people have been beating this drum, including me, and I'm sure including you, for years now. But finally, it's like at the top of the top, and people are paying attention to, something as simple and as terrible as the red food colorings, right? That impact brain function. Um, and so, anyway, I'm kind of maybe getting a little off topic a bit, but having this awareness around what we're putting in our bodies and on our bodies before the junk happens. That's what I just always call it, junk, right? Everybody's got their junk and they're always dealing with their junk, but starting now so we don't have to deal with the junk. And so we can live this amazing, optimal, full life until the day we die, instead of, struggling and trying to figure out, you going to the doctor and going into the hospital and spending all of this money on medical care when it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah, it's like, with health, unfortunately, what happens is you don't realize what you've got until you lose it.
Right. Yeah.
And when you lose it, the rest of your life is on hold. You really can't do anything. And so, what I really have become a proponent of saying is that health and wellness is the basis, is the foundation of your life, especially beginning in midlife. If you don't take care of your, if you don't take stock of things now, pretty soon you'll be able to tell. It begins to tell on you, whether it's
Yeah.
through just feeling run down or through feeling joint pains and aches and just not feeling robust enough. So I just say that health, from midlife onwards, health is the foundation for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
So everything else is built on a foundation of good health. And if you have that, then you can pursue all your personal and professional goals. And if you don't have that, then it's very binary. You either have it or you don't. And if you don't, then everything else is on hold.
Yep.
So, but the thing is that we somehow, human nature is like that. We don't pay attention to it until we're beginning to lose it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's true. What are you seeing as far as infections, toxic load, things like that? We have what many, I think, in standard, typical medicine believe is that we've got our liver and our lungs and our kidneys and our skin, and we just detox, and it's normal and it's natural, and we don't have to worry about detoxification. When genetics can play a role in detox, and what, again, going back to what we're using in our environment, our skin, our food, all of these things can play a role. Nutrient deficiencies can play a role, and so all of these things can impact body functions, but it also impacts hormones, and has the ability to impact how we move through perimenopause and menopause. So what are you seeing there?
In terms of infections and toxins, what I am seeing is certainly liver enzymes elevated in a lot of patients, right? And they don't have, so I definitely see a huge increase in mold toxicity in patients.
Oh my goodness, it's everywhere. It's crazy. Yeah.
Mold toxicity is high. There are also heavy metals, environmental toxin levels are really high. In terms of the infections, lately I haven't seen that much Lyme or Babesia or Ehrlichia, There are cases of long COVID that have an impact on brain health. There are other kinds of infections that people can have. You know, any kind of infection that you have, some kinds of sinusitis, people struggle with that chronic sinusitis for decades. And often that is a mold colonization of your sinuses. Or even simple things as gingivitis. You know, the bacteria that causes gingivitis has been found in the brains of people with dementia. Bugs that cause sinusitis have been found in the brains of people that have dementia. So it's really important. And you know, the whole thing with COVID is going to continue to play out. More and more information is coming out. And certainly people that have long COVID have a lot of other health problems, and it becomes a really big jumble of a diagnosis to untangle. It's really unfortunate. So yes, so infections and toxins are definitely two things that make a big impact to brain health and then overall health.
Have you seen in practice an uptick in mast cell activation syndrome?
Yes, mast cell, you know, people have always had mast cell activation. I have not noticed an increase in my practice with mast cell activation. I think each practice attracts a certain kind of patient to you. So I haven't, traditionally, I haven't had a lot of people with mast cell activation. But what I do know with the people that I have worked with is that a big portion of mast cell activation is your body is stuck in fight or flight. Your body is stuck in sympathetic mode. Your body is perceiving that it is not safe, even when there is no clear and present danger in the environment. Your body is stuck in that. That can happen with people that have high mold toxins. That can exacerbate or set off mast cell activation, which is why programs that are like brain retraining programs are becoming more and more popular and useful for individuals that have mast cell activation or other conditions that are either set off or exacerbated by the state that your nervous system is in. So working on the tone of the vagal nerve, working on soothing your mental, emotional tone, it's really, really helpful for that.
What else are you doing for brain health when it comes to that piece of it? You know, I talk to people a lot about vagal tone, and for those who don't know, you've got the vagus nerve that runs from the brain to the GI, and it plays a role in gut health. It plays a role in the way our heart functions, right? It plays a role in so much of who we are. If our GI is sluggish, right? And so we can have these situations where the vagal tone is not optimal and can cause symptoms. So, and there are exercises, really cool stuff that we can do to stimulate the vagus nerve. But what are some other things that you're seeing that's beneficial?
So I'm a big proponent of using simple ways to help people, because when somebody is stuck in fight or flight, has mast cell activation, giving them a lot of complicated things to do makes matters worse. So I'm a big proponent of using heart rate variability, because that's a simple thing you can do. I'm a big proponent of getting a heart rate variability monitor, and then there's a reader that you attach on your ear. It's a clip that goes on the ear, and then you connect it to your phone, and it can tell you the way you're breathing is, it can help you regulate your breathing and get into a zone where your heart rate variability increases and your heart rate decreases, because that's what you want. You want your heart rate to be not low, but in a range that is healthy and robust for you. So a heart rate in the 60s is helpful, in the 50s, depending on your age, of course. Like, you know, we cannot say, but increasing your heart rate variability is a simple way but also a biofeedback kind of way. Like when you are doing this on your phone, you can see the way I'm breathing. I'm staying in the green zone. Okay, I'm breathing a little bit too fast. That's taking me into the orange zone. So let me understand, okay, if I breathe in this way, slow and deep, I can stay in a more relaxed and parasympathetic way. And once you do that for a certain amount of time every day, you kind of are learning, you're teaching your body to remain in that zone, and then we train you with your stressors, whatever other stressors in your body that tend to get you out of that zone and put you in a stress mode again. We train you to use heart rate variability to be able to address those things, work on the stressful things, staying in the green zone.
Yeah.
So that's really helpful. So, those are real things that people can do on a daily basis in their lives too, which are not time intensive. They're not equipment intensive. You don't have to go somewhere for it. But a great, simple, and easy way to be more relaxed and present in your body.
I love that because I think that we don't, me included in this, but we don't think about breathing the way that we should. And I think that we are in this place which increases that sympathetic where we're breathing short, quick breaths. And I know I do this as well. And I know for me, when I breathe a deep breath, my shoulders go up, which is not good. So, teaching or learning how to breathe, and then doing the heart rate variability, which I love. I don't do that the way that I should. So these are all good reminders for me as well. To bring everything to a calm place, right? This is why meditation or reading the Bible or walking in the grass, right? Laying in the grass. All of these things are so important to the body. Have you read the book Earthing?
No, I haven't read the book, but I love earthing.
Yes.
I love it.
Yep.
It makes a big difference.
Yeah. So I'm just starting it. I've had it for years, and I know the concept behind it, right? It's the electromagnetic frequencies of the earth that help to bring our body to a good space. And we wear shoes that block that. We are inside all the time. We're in buildings all the time. All of these things that block our connection to the earth, and we need that connection to the earth. Anyway, so I'm reading the book now, so I love the science behind it, right? And that's what I want to know more about. But these are the things that are simple for people to do, no matter what the situation is. If it's perimenopause, if it's MCAS, if it's whatever condition, if it's just being stressed, if you have the ability to go outside and walk in the grass, that can be a game changer.
Absolutely. Makes a big difference. I remember when when you do a TEDx talk in San Diego, they promote you a lot, right? And when they start doing that, when I remember when it started happening back in January, suddenly I'm seeing my name pasted across all kinds of social media.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my gosh. So all I wanted to do that day was like I made a cup of chai and I went and I sat outside in my little lawn and sat down on the grass, and I felt like that's what I wanted to do. Like when stuff is happening in the world which is like not happened before and it's new and it makes you feel like, oh my gosh, okay, just taking a breath and just going and sitting on the ground. And I so enjoyed my chai, just sitting on the ground and looking at the greenery around me and the blue sky and the green grass and plants and trees. It was so soothing.
Yeah. I totally agree, and it's being in Colorado, this time of year I think it's like 7 degrees outside, which is really cold and a little bit bare. But once spring comes, I mean that's one of my very favorite things is the green against the blue, right? And just sitting outside and just taking that in and taking the sun in. The sun on my skin is one of my very, very favorite things, which is why I'm looking forward to Mexico, right? Get me to the beach. But it's calming and it brings you down in a good way, right? It brings the nervous system into a good, healthy, normal, natural place. Yeah. What are what are you seeing as some maybe more advanced interventions when it comes to um, those who are already going down the road of some cognitive dysfunction? What are you seeing? What are you doing in practice?
So, I think it's important to talk about something new that has come out in the last year. These are, previously what used to happen is if you suspect somebody has dementia, you would have to go do an MRI or to have a CSF tap to do analysis of your cerebrospinal fluid to look for evidence of plaque. These days, in the last 1 year, there are very advanced blood tests that you can do which can look for evidence of plaque in your blood from the vein, right? So
Okay.
you don't have to have these
Mhm.
advanced MRI or these invasive
Mhm.
testing to find out if you already have pathology of dementia in your brain. So that's one thing that I just wanted to say.
What is the
In
test?
ter-
Do you mind if I add? What is? Do you
oh
know
yeah,
this?
sure, of course. There's a company called Neurocode.
Okay.
Neurocode has created these, it's a set of 3 labs, and what they are testing for is one is testing for something called p-tau. Okay, these are tangles of p-tau in the
Mhm.
brain.
Mhm.
They and so it's testing for um, inflammation that is specific to Alzheimer's. It is also testing for non-specific inflammation in the brain and is testing for evidence of plaque in the brain. So there is a set of 3 tests, and
Okay.
Dr. Bredesen has been talking about these tests quite a lot over the last 1 year. So I just want to bring it to people's attention that Dr. Bredesen is calling these tests the brain scan.
Okay.
And the company is called Neurocode. So I recommend anybody that has any concern about brain health at all to look into this and perhaps to do this test for themselves to find out where things are. It's a very sensitive test, and it can be relied upon. So that's one thing. In terms of the advanced things that we are doing, um, there are things like light therapy or, exercise with oxygen therapy, or there is hyperbaric chambers, or there sometimes IV therapy. So these things can be added on to a brain health treatment or like a dementia prevention protocol. But I think the biggest bang for the buck is figuring out what is it in your brain, what is it in your body that is at the highest risk, right? Is it your heart health? Because if you have heart disease, you have brain disease, right? Because the circulatory system that is originating in the heart is the same that is serving the brain. The arteries, the vessels, the blood vessels that are in the brain are smaller and finer. So if you have plaque in the bigger arteries around the heart, odds are you have plaque in the smaller, finer arteries in the brain. And because they are smaller, they can get occluded, completely blocked. If blood isn't flowing through those vessels, then oxygen isn't flowing through, nutrients aren't flowing through, then those areas of the brain can begin to show the impact to your cognition before others, right? So taking care of heart health is super important. Understanding what are the different toxins in your body, which ones are more neurotoxic, and taking care of those is super important. There is this whole gut-brain axis, right? And the vagal nerve, which kind of connects the two. So taking care of all of those things. Testing for sleep apnea. Many people have undiagnosed sleep apnea, or even if you have diagnosed sleep apnea and you have a CPAP, is it working for you? Have you done the test for sleep apnea with a CPAP? I have a patient who has a sleep apnea problem, and she has a CPAP, and even with the CPAP, her score is so high. So it's figuring out what are the things in each patient that are causing the most damage and working to reverse that.
Yeah.
Right? And then we do other things as well, but often what ends up happening is one thing is causing 60 to 70% of the damage. So if we just bring that in line, you can see a huge change in somebody's brain health. So it's a fact finding mission. It's like we are investigative, we're
Yeah.
detectives to find out
Mhm.
where is the smoking gun. We need
Yep.
to find that. And
Yep.
so then that's the approach we follow.
Yep. Do you ever run a neural zoomer?
I don't run a neural zoomer. I do other kinds of
Okay.
tests to find it out because I
Mhm.
do the recode testing,
Okay. Yep.
and that is extensive labs through
Mhm.
Quest Diagnostics,
Okay.
and then I do a whole bunch of functional labs. But
Yep.
tell me, what is your finding with neural zoomer?
Well, so neural zoomer through Vibrant,
Vibrant, right?
right? So it can look at the toxins. It can look at specific foods. It can look at things like strep. Different organisms, infections that can impact neurological health. And so I just think it's a really fascinating panel that just it gives a ton of information. It's not at all specific to dementia or Alzheimer's, but to cognitive health and cognitive function, sort of in general. So just curious because I think I just think it's a really cool panel. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I have my tried and tested labs, and then I
Mm-hmm.
add to them over time once I get the evidence that okay, these are reliable. I can get good information from those,
Mm-hmm.
and also
Mm-hmm.
keeping cost in mind. Like, okay, what is going to give me the most bang for the buck for each patient?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yes, so I
Mm-hmm.
use a bunch of different labs for
Mm-hmm.
getting to what I need to get to for each
Mm-hmm.
patient. Yeah.
There are markers, and it's been a while since I read the book, but there are a couple of things that have stuck with me as I'm looking at my own clients and patients panels. One of those in particular, and I don't know if it's changed. I do have his newer updated book, but I haven't read it yet. But we can look at things like B12, and so
Mm-hmm.
tell me if this has changed. But we might see B12 under 600, and that can be problematic. And so we want it, it shows that it's in line if it's sitting at 4 or 500, right? That it's in range. But above 600 is what's best for cognitive function, right? And so if
Mm-hmm.
I see whether they are coming to me for whatever reason, if I see it under 600 because of Dale Bredesen, I'm like, we got to get your B up, your
Yeah.
B12 up, right?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, these, I mean, B12, B9,
Mm-hmm.
folate, B6,
Mm-hmm.
these are very essential
Yep.
nutrients. We need them for our
Mm-hmm.
metabolism and pretty much every reaction in the body.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, I mean, doing that and making sure your homocysteine is low.
Yep.
Um, so, all of those things are looked at. Absolutely.
That's another one that has stuck with me as well as homocysteine. I check it on everyone, and the lab ranges show it can be up to 13 that is in within range, whereas according to Dr. Bredesen in his book, anything over 11 is a 100% chance of cognitive decline, and I see it over 11 all the time.
Yes, there is a big difference between an optimal range for anything we test versus
Mm-hmm.
a conventional range,
Mm-hmm.
right? You know how the conventional ranges were developed. Do you know that?
I mean, my understanding is they're developed just based on illness, right? It's not. They're
It's
not.
based on the general population.
Yeah, yeah, which
So
is
they
sick.
take the data from the
Mm-hmm.
general population and they take, okay, what is the middle 80% of the
Mm-hmm.
population on, and that becomes the conventional range.
Right.
But our population is very sick.
Mm-hmm.
We are a chronically sick population in the US.
Yeah.
So those ranges are not very helpful.
Yeah, not at all. And so there is a big difference when we're looking at labs. We are looking at more optimal or functional ranges as opposed to what you'll see as a general lab range, which also super frustrating can change from lab to lab. They might have their own ranges.
I think the problem that happens with that is not all labs use the same units.
Right.
So I think it's
Mm-hmm.
important to look at the units.
Mm-hmm.
The range shouldn't change because the conventional range, like that has been established, that the larger labs
Mm-hmm.
use.
Mm-hmm.
So what I find is that I mean, a lot of practices, what they do is they have the conventional range and they add
Mm-hmm.
another column next to it, and then they say this is the optimal range,
Yep.
and then they
Mm-hmm.
compare to that, which is
Yep.
I do think it's more helpful.
Agreed.
But yes, it's important to make sure that the units across the different
Mm-hmm.
labs are the same because that can be confusing.
Yeah, yeah, totally agree. Um, I would love to know if there is anything that we have not covered that you would like to cover. Anything you want to end on?
When it comes to brain health or health in general at midlife, I just want to tell all women that if litigation and then you come to a conclusion this is not right for you, that is great. That is the way to be. Then you're not afraid. Then you say, okay, I considered this, and for X, Y, and Z reason, this is not an option for me. Great. Then you're an informed consumer. But
Right.
when you're in fear, it's not helping anyone.
Right. Totally agree. Has your TED Talk been released?
No, it takes like 6 to 8 weeks for
Does
it to
it?
be released. They take
Okay.
a while to edit
Okay.
it. Yeah.
Well, let me know. Send it to me so we can get it out there, and we'll add it to all of the notes and everything throughout because I think that's I'm excited to watch that, and congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, I will share.
Awesome. I would love that. Where can you be found?
So my website is the best place to find me. It's arunamed.com, ARUNAMED.com. There you can send me a message, you can connect on social media, you can schedule a discovery call, anything you want. All information is on my website.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much. This was such a great conversation. I've really been looking forward to this because it's such an important topic. Um, we really need to spread it far and wide, right? We don't have
Agreed.
to struggle. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All
Thank you
right.
so much.
Yeah, thank you. You all can find me, of course, at tastelifenutrition.com. We are streaming live here every week on KUHSdenver.com. Um, we would love to hear from you. If there are topics that you want to hear about, listen about, learn about, then let us know. We're here to be a resource. We're here to serve you and to just love on you as much as we can. So let me know if there's anything that is of interest to you. And then we'll be back here next week, 10 a.m. Mountain Time, again streaming live on the amazing KUHSdenver.com.